I want you to listen carefully, my dear, because what I'm about to tell you is not just a story. It's a scar carved into my youth, a memory that has followed me through every breath of my old age. Chicago in the 80s was no easy place. You see, the streets never really slept, always buzzing with the sound of passing L trains, the rhythm of jazz leaking from bars on the south side, the flashing neon signs blinking over diners that smelled of burnt coffee and fried onions. It was beautiful, chaotic, and dangerous all at once. And in that city, in those years, I was young, foolish, and madly in love with a boy who nearly broke me. His name was Anthony. To me, back then, he wasn't just a boy, he was fire-wrapped in leather, with eyes the color of deep bourbon, and a smile that could disarm anyone. He wasn't from money, nor was I, but he carried himself like the city belonged to him. He worked odd jobs, ran with a crowd I didn't quite trust, but I ignored the whispers. You know how love blinds you? It muffles the sound of warning bells, dulls the sharp edges of truth. We'd walk along Michigan Avenue at night, my arm hooked around his, pretending we were a pair of young dreamers about to conquer the world. I was working in a small office downtown, taking notes for lawyers, saving every penny I could. He knew I was saving, though I never told him how much. I wanted something bigger for myself, a chance to study, to maybe open my own place someday. But Anthony had his own dreams, darker ones I didn't see until it was too late. It was a cold November evening when everything began to unravel. I remember the sound of the wind howling down State Street, blowing trash along the sidewalks like tumbleweeds. I had just gotten home to my little apartment on the west side when the phone rang. The line crackled, and a man's voice, low and distorted, said, "We have Anthony. If you ever want to see him again, you'll bring $5,000 by midnight." I froze. My heart stuttered. $5,000? That was nearly everything I had saved for years. I asked them who they were, what they wanted, but the line went dead. All that remained was the echo of that demand. My knees gave out, and I sat on the cold linoleum floor of my kitchen, clutching the phone as though it could explain itself. I spent that whole night pacing, calling his friends, even the police. But Chicago cops back then, unless you were somebody with weight, were slow to act. They told me to wait, to let them handle it. But how could I wait when the man I loved was supposedly tied up somewhere, begging for his life? So I went to the bank. I withdrew everything, every dime I had scraped together from typing documents, skipping dinners, and pinching pennies. And when midnight came, I carried that envelope of cash to the address they had left me in a second phone call, an abandoned warehouse by the river. The place smelled of rust and oil, and my hands trembled as I set the money down where they had instructed. I called out his name, but no one answered, just shadows and silence. Minutes later, a car screeched by outside, its tires screaming against the pavement, and I thought maybe, just maybe, Anthony was inside, free now because of me. The next day, Anthony returned, bruised, dirty, shaken. He told me they had let him go, that he had barely escaped. I held him, cried into his chest, and cursed those faceless monsters who had stolen my money. He swore he would make it up to me, swore he loved me, and I believed him, because back then, love made me weak. But then, just weeks later, without warning, he left me. No explanation, no tearful goodbye, just gone. And when I finally confronted him in a smoky bar, where he sat with another girl draped across his arm, he laughed Laughed. He told me the kidnapping had been a game, a trick, that I was a fool for believing it. He'd staged it all with his friends. He'd taken my money, and now he was done with me. Do you know what it feels like to have your heart ripped out and spat on? To watch the man you gave everything to mock you in front of strangers? I walked home that night in the rain, every step heavier than the last, and something inside me snapped. For days, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. But grief eventually hardened into something sharper anger, and anger gave me purpose. I told myself, if he wanted to play games, I would show him I could play better. Anthony, you see, had a weakness, more than one, actually. He was reckless, addicted not only to the thrill of fast money, but to substances he thought kept him invincible. Cocaine was flooding the Chicago streets then, and he was no stranger to it. He thought he hid it well, but I knew. I had seen the powder under his nails, the glassy look in his eyes, the small bags tucked into his jacket. So I waited. I gathered pieces of his world, details he had carelessly left in plain sight, names of his suppliers, places he went, habits he couldn't kick. I built a picture, careful and quiet, while smiling whenever I happened to cross his path, as though I had accepted my heartbreak and moved on. In truth, I was sharpening my knife. It didn't take much to frame him. A whispered word to the right officer, a carefully placed package, a night when Anthony thought he was untouchable. And just like that, the police raided the dingy apartment where he and his friends gathered. They found him with enough drugs to put him away for a long, long time. He called me from jail. His voice was different this time, stripped of its arrogance. He begged. Pleaded. Baby, please, you have to help me. Get me a lawyer. Get me out. You're the only one I can trust. I almost laughed, but I held it in. I told him I'd visit. And when I walked into that cold, gray visiting room and saw him on the other side of the glass, his once confident face now pale with fear, I felt a strange sense of justice. He asked again, desperate, his hands pressed against the glass. Please, get me bail. You know I don't belong here. I'll pay you back. Just don't leave me in here. And that's when I leaned forward, my voice low and steady, my eyes locked on his. I told him the truth. I told him I knew everything, that I had known for months, that I was the reason he was sitting in that cell. His mouth dropped open, his eyes wide like a trapped animal. You wanted my money so badly, you staged your own kidnapping, I said. You thought you could take everything from me and walk away smiling. Well, now you know what it feels like. Now you know who really has the power. He begged harder then, swearing he'd change, swearing he'd pay me back. I told him that was exactly what I wanted. Not his promises, not his apologies, just my money, all of it. And I reminded him that unless he found a way to return it, I'd make sure the judge heard every dirty little detail about his life. Fear is a powerful motivator, more powerful than love, more powerful than pride. Within weeks, through some miracle of manipulation, he scraped together the money. I don't know how, probably begged, borrowed, or stole from the same people he used to laugh with, but he paid me back every last dollar. And when he did, I walked away, not with anger anymore, not with tears, but with the cold satisfaction that I had balanced the scales. He had taught me how cruel love could be, but I had taught him something greater, that betrayal carries a price. Years passed, and I never saw him again. I heard rumors that he left Chicago, that he slipped deeper into his addictions, maybe even died in some alley far from the glittering lights we once dreamed beneath. I didn't care. By then, I had rebuilt my life. I found strength in my independence, carved a place for myself in the very city that once tried to swallow me whole. And that, my dear, is why I tell you this story. Because love, as sweet as it feels, can also be poison if you drink it too blindly. Never give someone so much power over you that they can strip you of everything. And if they ever do, remember that even the broken can rise. Even the betrayed can take back what's theirs. That was Chicago, 1983. That was me, a foolish girl turned into a woman forged by fire. And that, child, is the reason I never let anyone play games with my heart again.